Hello, welcome to our worship facility webinar, Choosing and Maintaining Automated Lights and Consoles, featuring Bill Di Paolo. I'm Gene Lance, editor of Worship Facility. Well, I'm particularly interested in this topic because we've seen lots of material about choosing lights and consoles, but we haven't seen a lot about maintaining. What have you had to tell us about it?
Thanks, Gene, and welcome to Automated Lights and Consoles, part of the Worship Facilities Learning Series. I'm Bill Di Paolo, and I've been a technical director for over 30 years, and I've really seen the lighting industry change from basic lighting fixtures and dimmers and lighting boards to amazing color changing and moving light fixtures and lighting consoles that really allow you to design a show. Both automated lighting fixtures and lighting consoles aren't cheap. Even lower end products have a cost. So making the right decision will help you purchase the right products for your church. Once you have purchased these items and have started to use them, maintain them, and playing around with them a bit, servicing them will extend their usage within your system. Obviously, if you purchase these items, you're going to want them to last. You're not going to be able to just keep requesting money or funds to, getting new ones. What are automated lights? Intelligent lighting fixtures that can move, focus, and change color or even gobo pattern are typically controlled by DMX. Moving lights or intelligent lighting fixtures refer to staged lighting equipment that has automated abilities that go above and beyond traditional lights. These types of lights can produce the most complex and extraordinary effects. Moving lights are usually controlled by lighting control consoles. So how are automated lights controlled? By a lighting control console. Sometimes some people refer to it as a lighting board or a lighting desk, which is an electronic device used in theatrical lighting design to control multiple stage lights at once. The newest ones are running on some of the fastest software available, and some are even touchscreen, which makes programming automated lights very easy with position, color, and design. So what are the benefits of automated lights? Number one is energy efficiency. The newer fixtures draw probably about a tenth of what the old ones used to, sometimes even less based on the model. You no longer need to buy color correction gel. They definitely don't put off as much heat. So if you're in a situation where your building has in the summer has a cooling issue, you definitely have these fixtures that aren't pushing off as much heat as the older fixtures did. They're a lot easier to handle, mostly because of the temperature. And with them being able to be programmed from the ground, it's a lot less work on ladders, balcony rails, or even on catwalks. So automated lighting can clean up the appearance of the interior of the room. There's no need for bulky fittings, big pipes off to the side, big mountings on the walls or from the ceilings. Automated lighting can make you more energy efficient, with lights and lighting levels only being used as necessary. By only using energy that is needed, users can reduce their electrical bills. And let's face it, our houses of worship are very large. Our energy bills are extremely high. So anything we can do to change that and bring that down would be beneficial. It also helps us justify the purchase of newer fixtures, and hopefully that'll balance out over time. Like it or not, your lighting setup makes a statement about your worship service long before your team takes the platform. Traditional or contemporary, your house and stage lights are the lens through which new faces and regular attenders will view your service. Therefore, it's important to be mindful of the impact of the good lighting. What is the role of stage lighting in a church? Well, if you're new to stage lighting, it's not as overwhelming as it seems. Lighting serves two major functions: visibility and atmosphere. Some lighting fixtures, like spots and powers aimed at the stage, help the congregation stay tuned to what's happening on stage. And atmospheric wash lights and uplights utilized in the background can complement the stage or architecture of your space. And they go a long way in enhancing beauty and providing comfort. So whether it's sightlines or ambience you're after, choosing the right lighting setup can help you create an effect and definitely engage the environment for your worship. So, are automated stage lights right for your church? If the idea of stage lights calls to mind laser lights and out-of-control concert productions, you're not alone. Many smaller and traditional churches are understandably hesitant about investing in a modern lighting setup. Good lighting is timeless. Music styles and furnishings will come and go, but with a versatile LED automated lighting system, you are safeguarding your church against transient lighting trends. Good lighting is affordable. Compared to traditional fixtures, a modern system of cool running LEDs can save money year after year, with as much as 85% savings on reduced electricity costs. And that is just good stewardship. Good lighting is available for all sizes and budgets. Stage lights just aren't for mega churches anymore. A modest lighting setup can be built for well under $5,000. Good lighting is easier to incorporate than ever. Modern fixtures with sound-activated programs and app-based controls are empowering volunteers to get involved in lighting design, even without prior experience. This means that creating a sharp-looking environment doesn't require hiring dedicated personnel. So now we're at the point where we have to select the right lighting council for your church. When it comes to choosing a lighting control system for your church, there are endless options. And if you ask any church lighting designer, chances are they will share with you what they believe to be their chosen platform and that it's the best one to go with. In my years of lighting design, I have had the opportunity and pleasure to work behind many lighting softwares and consoles. All control platforms come with advantages and disadvantages, but used properly, all of them can help programmers achieve great lighting looks within a church's worship service. There are a few factors in determining which lighting software or console platform to adapt, but ultimately, the quality of your lighting cues, looks, and creativity all comes down to the level of training you have received, and is the software the right software for you? Training is the one option that when you get your software or the console, you have to put your own work into. Sometimes people will buy the package add-on, but really the time you spend in there to create looks is your learning time. I've seen far too many churches purchase lighting control packages that are top of the line, thinking that the platform or the software will give them amazing and pro-level lighting looks. I've also seen far too many so-called AVL integrators recommend consoles or lighting software to churches that should never have been recommended. And due to that fact, there are so many options out there, churches like yours get lost and end up usually making a bad decision out of pure frustration. So before you pull the trigger on that new lighting control system, first and foremost, talk to a true lighting expert. Also, plan on getting training for all your volunteers. Training is one of the lowest cost investments you can make in taking your church lighting to a whole new level. So, also, before purchasing, here's a few questions you need to ask, not just yourself, but your entire team. Who's running the lights? What's the lighting package size? What's your worship service style? Which features do I actually need? Am I going to get trained, and will my volunteers get trained? Can we control our conventional lighting and LED lighting as well as our moving lighting? Can we interface with our installed dimmer packs and non-dimmable lights? Is it reasonably easy to operate, and will the volunteers be able to program? Do we have upgradable capabilities for future software and hardware changes? Okay, so let's circle back. Who's running the lights? An important factor to consider is who will be behind the lighting desk for programming and operation. In 95% of churches, volunteers will be doing the weekend worship service programming as well as the operation, with the occasional staff tech production director hopping in from time to time with some programming and playback sessions along the way to help out their team. The other 5% of churches would include a full-time LD lighting designer as a paid staff position, which is a luxury most churches can't even fathom. So, since a full-time lighting designer staff person is not really a reality for most churches, We'll assume that your church's lighting team of programmers and operators will be volunteer. So, with that being the case, it's of the most importance to take into consideration the time that volunteers are able to dedicate to programming. Just because your lighting team is volunteer-led does not mean that the excellence cannot be achieved in lighting. It simply means you must set your lighting volunteers up for success. And this comes down to choosing the right system and getting your volunteers trained. Lighting package size. Another aspect, and an obvious one, that is far too often missed is choosing a lighting control system that best fits the application. Based on your lighting package or rig size and your weekend service style, some systems and console choices may lend themselves to be more effective than others. If your lighting rig only consists of a handful of front stage wash lights and some backlights, then a simple small console or lighting software is your solution. Computer-based control should be opted for if possible, as it allows you the most flexibility for future expansion. And even though convenient, a console with physical faders and encoders for a small lighting package is not a necessity. It would be more important to invest your extra budget into more lighting fixtures than into a physical lighting console or surface. Now, if your lighting rig is more complex with stage wash, lights, movers, LED bars, blinders, media server, etc., then a complex system to allow for more options and setup and control would be advisable. The more lights you have, the more DMX channels you will need, and the more pieces you'll need to communicate with. Worship service style. Now consider what style your church services flow in. In a highly programmed service style, you may be able to operate lighting with a software solution and simply use the mouse and keyboard to pull up looks or cues. A console may help you in programming, but it is not a necessity. In these style services, pre-programming an entire service makes sense. The intention of pre-programming was set up your church well for the weekend service. Your lighting cues would simply be activated with a click of the mouse or keyboard. Your cues could run and include walk-in, welcome, song 1, song 2, video, sermon, etc., etc. Perhaps your church is more free flow. In this scenario, having your software and or console set up to be able to follow suit is recommended. I would advise for these lighting setups to have faders and presets ready. Being able to follow at a moment's notice to where the service goes is an essential skill of the lighting designer in this style service. But with the right system and setup, accomplishing big lighting looks on the fly is easily possible. Maybe your church is in between, strictly programmed and free flow. In this setup, being both intentional in the pre-programming and also in tune with the worship atmosphere is essential. You must plan accordingly in your programming, but also have faders and presets prepared for spontaneous actions. When it comes to helping create a worshipful environment, the last thing we want to do as lighting designers is to not support our pastors and worship leaders. Being open and supportive to leadership makes you a great lighting programmer. Which features do you actually need? The toughest thing to take into consideration is which software provides the features that your church needs. Being in tune with what your church needs versus what you want is a skill that is needed in any production role at your church. Based on the service style, do you need a console? Do you and your volunteers have the bandwidth to pre-program? Do you need a system that is robust enough to make changes on the fly? Do you need a visualization to program because your church is a portable church? Will the system grow with your church? Ask yourself these hard questions when determining what is needed versus what is wanted in terms of software. Formal training. Perhaps the most important factor to consider when choosing a control setup is whether there is training readily available. It's not uncommon for a church to purchase a piece of gear solely because it's top of the line. You can have the most versatile, powerful lighting software with a top-of-the-line console, but be completely underutilizing it. Once you've determined the best option for your church in lighting control, be a student of it. Constantly seek out training for it so you can harness the full potential of what it all can offer. Feel free to experiment and seek out training. Oftentimes, a solution to a problem can be discovered by seeking out wise counsel in that matter. Okay, so on to lighting maintenance. All production lighting needs TLC to perform at its best. Let me give you a few tips to help you get through this to maintain your fixtures and save your church a lot of money. Like anything of value, production lighting requires some care if you want it to perform at its best. And for a long time, much of what's involved in the maintenance of these fixtures themselves could be classified as good housekeeping. Want them to work? Keep them dust-free. But sometimes how well or poorly lighting performs depends on how you're powering your system. Here are a few good practices for your church. Scheduled maintenance. If you're going to invest in these lights, we need to plan for regular routine maintenance. If you don't put lighting maintenance on your calendar, chances are you're not going to get around to it. It's similar to a car. You want to make sure you change the oil. You want to check under the hood once in a while and maybe replace the spark plugs. And that thing will treat you right for years to come. Most production lighting manufacturers provide maintenance schedules for new fixtures on request. If you're purchasing used fixtures, it's a good idea to ask the seller about the unit's maintenance history. Some products may need software or firmware updates. Be systematic. Getting rid of all the dust. Using a professional air compressor or a can of compressed air, blow all the dust out of every instrument. Keeping the fixtures clean. This is where all the fixtures and their cables are wiped off and inspected for cracked glass, burnt plugs, and anything out of the ordinary. Even loose screws, especially on anything suspended overhead with any bolts. If the fixture has a lamp and not an LED, this should also be taken out and wiped off with alcohol pads. Never try to touch the glass with your bare hands. The oil from your skin will leave spots on the lamp, which will create hot spots, which will decrease the bulb's life. Make sure you check the plug. This means the covers are taken off and all the wires are inspected and all the screws are tightened to prevent arcing of wires. Have a testing station. This is where your techs will plug in fixtures to confirm that everything is working and all the colors of the LED spins, all the fans are worked, everything's cleaned out, and all the nuts and bolts are tight. And finally, remind techs to break out the portable vacuum cleaner and get rid of the dust on any hanging pipes. That dust will eventually make its way over to the fans of all the units, and we really don't want that. I know this process is asking a lot, but remember how expensive all this equipment is and how hard it was to get the funds to buy this equipment in the first place, and how hard it will be to get funds to replace it. So this exercise serves as a safety inspection as well, and it will make sure that your lights will work when they're back up in the air or in their position. You may be surprised at how clean and bright things look because the glass has been cleaned and all the dust is not blocking the output of the fixture. Check fans. While the fans and moving lights tend to stir up one of the primary enemies of all electronics, you got it, dust. You need them to be operational. Otherwise, you'll experience failures due to another enemy electronics, heat. If you're using moving lights, every so often, feel around the body of the instrument, making sure that there's airflow around it and that everything is clear of dirt and debris. Make sure the fans can easily breathe if the fans are underneath, and make sure the top gears are all free of dirt and debris as well. And make sure that the fans are actually running inside of the mover. A lot of movers may have 4, 5, or even 6 fans in them, depending on the model, and 1 or 2 of the fans may fail. When this happens, the fixture will eventually overheat, which decreases its overall lifespan. LED odds and ends. It may seem a little weird to be discussing the maintenance for LED fixtures because they're touted to be maintenance free. But are they? Well, yes. If you made the effort to actually turn them off when they're not being used. Just because you turn off your lighting control console and all the lights are dimmed to 0 they're still pulling energy unless you've already have an electrical control system in place. When not powering down via an electrical control system, LED fixtures are always in listening mode, which is not to be confused with standby mode. The lighting fixtures are always listening for instructions from the DMX. Should I move? Should I dim? And the number one mistake people make is no light output with the fixtures being turned off. And if the LEDs are constantly pulling power, they're also generating heat. If fixtures dim internally, if they move internally, they've got a computer inside. They have processors, and those processors' lifespans will be dramatically reduced if they are left in an always-on position, whether there's light output or not. To address this, some manufacturers have wall-mounted motorized circuit panels that allow lighting systems to be powered down at circuit level. Sometimes relay panels can be installed in the rigging next to the fixtures themselves. They are more difficult to access if something goes wrong. Regardless of how your churches opt to truly power down their LED lighting system, treat this technology the same way techs have been treating to turn off their audio systems. If you have powered speakers, the amplifier that's built into the speaker basically has a computer in it, and everyone knows that they have to be powered down. The same reason you turn off your audio gear is exactly the same reason you want to turn off your lighting gear, except people are so used to lighting being incandescent, where there weren't computers years ago, that they haven't made that mental transition yet. Well, everybody, I hope that give you some information into figuring out what type of lighting system you want to look into, what type of consoles or software you want to look into in automated lights. It's not an easy road. As I said earlier through this whole thing, do your research. Don't talk to one person, talk to a lot of people in the business, and really put together on all the questions I asked you today and we went over, make a good list. I think that will lead you in the right way. Feel free to send me any questions you got. I'd be more than willing to answer them and lead you in the right direction. And with that, I would like to thank Gene Lance and Kevin McPherson, Ryan Goodwin, for helping me out with this presentation and let me be part of the learning series for worship facilities. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for watching this webinar. As always, if you have any questions, please address them to me at glass@worshipfacility.com. We'll get you some answers. Thanks again to Bill Di Paolo, and thank you for watching.